Hey guys, this is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, and we're back with another Michigan recruiting report here exclusively on our YouTube channel. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. You can also subscribe to the Wolverine.com for just $1 for 1 month. All right, we're going to talk about top 100 cornerback Chris Ewald, who decommitted from Michigan a week after the Wolverines won the national championship. Ewald had been committed to Michigan for more than a year and decided to back off of his verbal pledge. So, what happened in this recruitment? Why did Ewald decide to leave? Well, two things that I think were compounding factors here. One, Jim Harbaugh obviously flirting with the NFL certainly doesn't help. Now, Ewald has a great relationship with co-defensive coordinator and cornerbacks coach Steve Clinkscale, as well as fellow Florida native and Stafford Denard Robinson, but you still want to know who your head coach is. And with Jim Harbaugh flirting around with the NFL, that played a role. And, Ewald obviously decommitted from Michigan just hours after Harbaugh wrapped up his interview with the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, Harbaugh had told Ewald and his family that he wasn't going to explore NFL options, but that was in the summer. He recently changed his tune, telling recruits like Gatlin Bear that he still had an eye for potentially winning a Super Bowl. And so, that kind of narrative, I guess, hindered Michigan in keeping Ewald. And the second thing is just NIL. I mean, you see the other schools involved in Ewald's recruitment. Miami is now considered the On3 recruiting prediction machine leader, and Miami is one of the true NIL powerhouses in recruiting right now. Florida State's not too far behind, another school that participates in a ton of NIL. Ewald was on campus at Georgia over the weekend, which I'm sure also played a role in his decommitment. Right now, Michigan doesn't have a true plan when it comes to NIL and recruiting, and that's going to hurt you when you're trying to recruit top 100 kids that aren't in the region and top 100 kids in general. I mean, even a guy that was right in your own backyard, Bryce Underwood, is heading south to LSU, which apparently did really well with recruiting NIL and the Underwood recruitment. So, despite the wins on the field, and even if Harbaugh comes back and stops flirting with the NFL long term, you still have to solve the issue of NIL, or you're not going to be able to land a Bryce Underwood or keep a Chris Ewald. That's just nature of the beast. It's how recruiting works right now, whether you like it or not. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of NIL as it pertains to recruiting. It makes things tougher to cover. It makes recruitments kind of flip-flop around even more than they were previously. So, but you have to adapt. It's an ever-changing world. You have to adapt. And I think Michigan hasn't really found a way to truly approach NIL and recruiting. So I think those two factors, were the driving force in Ewald backing out of his verbal pledge to Michigan. And on top of that, look, Ewald gave an early commitment and he was touted as the face of the class. You don't want your face of the class out there recruiting other guys to play with him at Michigan. And then he's turning around and he's visiting Georgia and he's visiting Miami and he's visiting Florida State. It's not a good look for Ewald, and it's also not a good look for Michigan. So I think it was kind of mutually beneficial to part ways. And just because they did doesn't mean this recruitment is completely over. If Harbaugh does come back, and even if he doesn't, if Sharon Moore's the head coach and Steve Clinkscale is still on staff, you still have a shot with Ewald. I spoke to Ewald's father yesterday right after he decommitted, and he told me, look, Michigan is still a contender in this recruitment. He even went as far as to say that Michigan's still at the top of the list. They love Michigan. This wasn't a Raylan Wilson situation. For those of you that remember Raylan Wilson, who was a Florida prospect that committed to Michigan on a whim. He never really visited and, ended up flipping to Georgia. Chris Ewald committed to Michigan and he visited a ton after he committed on his own dime. Like, he paid for those visits to go all the way from Miami to Ann Arbor. So I think there's still love for Michigan from the Ewald family. But I think, again, even if Sharon Moore's in place or Harbaugh comes back, you still have to fix the NIL issue, because if you're trying to recruit a kid from Florida, even if he loves Michigan more than the other programs, it's tough to pass up what Miami's offering or what Florida State's offering or what Georgia's offering. It is what it is right now. So I wouldn't completely dismiss Chris Ewald. I think Michigan, there's a slight chance Michigan could get him back. They're definitely still in consideration, but I think that NIL obviously has to be fixed for that to happen. And, it's tough to lose Ewald, especially considering the 2024 class where Michigan didn't hit on its top targets. Obviously, you lost Bryce West and Aaron Scott, and you had to pivot to Jeremiah Lowe and Josiah Edmond, who I think was a very quality take, especially given the circumstances, and has been one of the biggest risers in the rankings. But you see the roster right now, there's still a void at corner. So losing a guy like Ewald who has the talent and then losing him as a peer recruiter as well, there's no way around it. It really does hurt. Now, no one recruit is going to make or break the cycle or the program or anything like that. But I think it would be great if Michigan is somehow able to get Chris Ewald back on board. So for more insider notes on the Ewald decommitment, what's next, and everything else Michigan recruiting, make sure to subscribe to the Wolverine.com today for just $1 for 1 month. Also like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free.